Consensus in a Bloomberg survey is for a 5.2% GDP expansion in 2023. We'll also get the numbers for December industrial production, retail sales there due. Beijing, of course, expected to again set this year's growth target at around 5%. So let's get more perspective on that now with our next guest, independent economist Andy Sher, joining us this morning in the Hong Kong studio. So it's an ambitious target given a higher base. If we do see that 5.2%, is it realistic, do you think?
I think last year there was a big bounce in domestic tourism that really added 2 percentage points to GDP growth rate. So I think last year was a low base rebound. And it's going to be a bit more difficult this year, I think. But it's possible that 5% is still achievable because we're going to have an export rebound.
But still, if we get that, it does perhaps rely quite a lot on aggressive stimulus. You're not really calling for that at the same time either.
No, I think that the monetary growth last year was moderate. 10%, M2 grew by 10%, and credit grew by about 9.5%. It's higher than GDP growth rate, but I think by historical standard, it didn't suggest a big stimulus. So I don't see that coming this year either. China is letting the market adjust, letting the property market deflate, letting the economy shift towards more productive economic activities. The process may be long and difficult, but you have to bite the bullet and get to the other side.
What are the sort of positives then to draw out for the Chinese economy this year? What's going to help it along, do you think?
Well, the key is that stop speculation. It's not good that people spend their time speculating in property and in shadow banking system. It's just a waste of resources. The GDP you create is a bad GDP. It's not sustainable. Now people are have calmed down. They're focusing on productive activities like technology, like branding, and so forth. So I think the Chinese economy qualitatively is improving a lot. Instead of working for global companies, Chinese companies now are competing against global companies. They make make and sell their own products. So China is becoming a normal economy. It's not like a low-cost place for people come to make something. It's competing in the global economy on its own. That's how China will become a high-income economy.
Andy, it's easier said than done, right? We're seeing this renewed focus on local government corruption and graft more than 10 years after President Xi kicked off this campaign. And a lot of that has been down to the top-down directive of achieving GDP. How easy do you think it will be for local governments and officials to be able to implement that message of higher quality growth?
Well, I think that the government likes to boost confidence, but in terms of policy priority, is not short-term growth. I think the key is to stop corruption and speculation. And if you stop corruption and speculation, Chinese people will do the right thing. The key is to stop people from going to the wrong places. So I think that's the key to Chinese economy. It's secondary importance in terms of what people are going to do next. We're already seeing people doing the right thing now. So the corruption is the worst for long-term economic development. So I think in the short term might hurt a little bit, but it's a big positive in the long term.
And you mentioned the need to shore up confidence for corporations, for households, businesses, really across the board. But the signs are already that China's economy is already suffering a deflationary cycle, right? Do you think it's going to be quite challenging to get demand and confidence up without more direct stimulus, more direct measures?
Well, I think that certainly there are a lot of business people who are very bearish. And these business people are usually associated with finance and property. Okay, they were very big in the past 20 years. So I think it's not a bad thing. Chinese economy is changing. The companies that will dominate Chinese economy in 10 years, 20 years are going to be very different from what you are seeing today. So a lot of companies need to disappear. So the transition is much more important than the short-term growth. I do not now see China is in a monetary deflation spiral. Money supply is growing at 10%. You cannot say there's monetary deflation. If we find some prices are going down, they were too high before. So it's more like a price normalization. So I think for China, the government is doing the right thing. Hold on. Don't get spooked by the weak sentiment, weak growth, and stick to transition and promote new companies that make their own products and may have their own technologies, not just like the bucket shops that use China's cost structure to make stuff for other people and then speculate in property and in finance. So the past is over. Where the China is heading towards a new future.
In that new future, though, because there is that focus on China growing these industries like EV, like solar, and they need to find these new export markets as well. The flip side of that, of course, is there's that concern of China's growing dominance in those fields, and you raise the risk of tariffs. So how does that play into it?
I think that the West is losing competitiveness, because when you look at what the West is doing, you look at what people are talking about in Davos, they're still talking about money, interest rate, and money supply, and government policy. China has moved on. China is more focusing on real stuff. So China will become more competitive down the road. So the West will raise tariffs. It's the only, they're trying to hang on. But the market is much bigger than the West. And the industrialized economies are only 10% of the people in the world. And you look at the growth in the automobile sector, for example, it's likely to double by 2030. Mostly will be in emerging economies. And China will be doing very well over there. China will take up most of the growth over the next decade of the growth of $4 trillion. So then import substitution is a big source of growth for China, and that cannot be stopped by the tariffs on the other side. You look at a semiconductor, look at a commercial jet, you look at like a cruise ship, LNG tankers. These are things that China needs. So China will buy. So I see $1 trillion over there. So I think a lot of growth opportunities if China focuses on in the right areas, technology, branding, quality, understanding consumers. Just do your own thing. Don't worry about what other people are thinking. Don't worry about the sentiment. And what do you want to achieve in 10 years is the most important thing. So what's going on now is not so important.
Well, Andy, thanks so much for your time this morning. We'll be sure to have you on again soon. That was Andy Sher, independent economist.